Hello everyone, SuperBricks37 here. In today's LEGO City update, we're going to be tearing down the entire LEGO City and rebuilding it in a very new and very different way, which is, I think, going to allow us to have a lot more room, as well as a lot more details in the city. So yeah, with that being said, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe down below to keep up to date with all the LEGO City updates. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, I know it's been a pretty long time since I've done a city update, and that's mainly because I've been pretty happy with this layout of the city. It's allowed me to do a lot of nice pictures for Instagram and setting up scenes with different figures and different sets. And it's got a lot of nice details that I do like. But I think I'm getting a little bit bored of it. It's not a bad layout. I still really like this layout. And if I decide that I don't like the new layout that I'm going to be doing, this is probably going to be similar to what I go back to. But yeah, like I said, I'm just getting a little bit bored of this. So I think it's just time to change it up a little bit. And to change it up, we're actually going to be adding 2 levels in. Where we're going to have one level at the bottom, where I'm going to have 2 sets of train tracks going around. And then I'm going to have another level sitting above that using a plastic shelf system that is actually one of my old display shelves, because I recently replaced it with a matching one. So now I have 2 matching shelves instead of 2 different ones. And these platforms are actually a really nice size to cover this table, where I can use 3 platforms, 4 possibly, to completely cover an L shape in the city, and then leave a section open to have the passenger train landing area for the Hogwarts Express and the White Train, as well as the cargo loading area that you can see is in the back of the city here. So yeah, that's the plan as of right now, but it's just gonna depend on how well I can get it to fit, if I include the passenger train area or if I just do the cargo train. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the little blueprint that I have drawn up. Alright, and if you guys don't know, I am actually studying to be an engineering student, so I use this graph paper like this for a lot of different things. And this is just one of those things that I'm using it for, is designing the layout for the city. And as you can see, in the layout that I've got in my head, it actually leaves a lot of open area. Like, the way it's set up right now, this section, and this section would all be elevated, and then all of this would be wide open for the trains to go through, like both the cargo train, which will probably be in the back, and then the passenger train, which would be in the front. So we'd have one loop, a smaller loop going around the inside, and then a larger loop going around the outside of the table, with the platform sitting over top of that. So that's what we're thinking right now. But first, we have to actually not only take the entire city out, but actually prep the platforms to be put in there. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're doing with those. Alright, and what I mean by prepping the platform is actually two different things. One of which is taking the legs of the platform and actually cutting it down to a shorter size. That way the taller buildings like the Daily Bugle and my Custom Avengers Tower will still fit in the space that we have. So we're actually going to take these legs, which are originally 18 inches long, and we're actually going to cut it down to 8 inches. So that will allow enough clearance for the trains and the train platforms to still fit under it, but it'll still allow it to have enough space for the buildings to fit in the limited space that I have. So we got to cut all the legs down to that size, and then we also have to sand down the top of these shelves, because as you can see, the spot where the legs go in is actually elevated. And it's elevated by quite a bit, so if I try to set a base plate down on that, it'll actually keep it from sitting perfectly level, which I definitely don't want. And I'll also sand down the edges here, because you can see there's a little lip on them as well. I don't think I'll worry about these gaps in here because of how small they are, so I'm not going to worry about too much about them. But I do need to get rid of all of this and the lips. So let's go ahead and get to sanding these down first, and then we'll cut the legs. So let's go ahead and go do that. Alright, so I decided it would probably be better if I just fully completed one of the shelves, and then test fit it into the city just to see if it needs to be taller, if it needs to be shorter, just see kind of what it's looking like. So let's go ahead and take a look at the finished product. And I know it looks pretty rough around the edges, but I don't think that's really going to matter all that much, especially since it's going to be covered in Lego anyway. But as you can see, I did get rid of the lip, so it is perfectly level all the way around, which is really awesome. And I did severely shorten the legs as well. So I think the next step is going to be to empty out probably this side of the city, and then just get that test fitted in, or, you know, better yet, we'll just go ahead and do this side, since this is where it'll end up sitting anyway, and we'll set that piece that we just made right along there and see how it looks. So let's go ahead and get that done. Alright, so here's what one of the shelves is looking like on the city, and I think this is going to be a nice height to have the trains running underneath all the tables, and then we'll have more wrapping all the way back around there. And then according to the schematic that I did up, we would have a line of tables all the way in the back, but then this entire front area would all be open, so you can see the train track. I think I'm actually going to deviate from that a little bit, and I'm going to find a way to either put another one of these here or another one here, so that only a small section is open. But that'll just be one of those things where we see what it looks like overall once we get all the tables on, and then come up with that decision. But I think one important thing we should probably do is go ahead and set the tallest building, which is the Daily Bugle, on top of that, just to see how the height matches up, to make sure we don't need to go any shorter with these tables. So let's go ahead and do that next. Alright, so the Daily Bugle is very tall. It actually goes above the point where my upper shelf is, which is kind of what I was hoping to avoid. But I think, honestly, if we put it in this corner and just left it pretty much right where it's sitting right now, I think it would look pretty good. Because then we could have maybe Avengers Tower, maybe the police station, and then maybe some more buildings around there, and then maybe Avengers Tower somewhere over in this area to kind of spread it out a little bit. I think that would look pretty nice. Or we might be able to just bunch all three of them up together here, just like we did in the previous layout. But I think what I'm going to do now is test fit the Avengers Tower as well, to see if that actually goes underneath the platform, or the upper shelf. Because if it does, then we could have the Daily Bugle, then the police station, and then the Avengers Tower, just like we did down here. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Alright, it looks like the Avengers Tower is short enough, but just barely. You can see the antenna barely hits the top of that. So I think the best course of action for that is going to be to try to keep it away from the shelf, but we'll just have to see what happens with it. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do now is finish up making the rest of these, and then we can get a full look at what the layout's going to look like. So yeah, let's go ahead and go do that. And one thing I did want to note before I moved on making the rest of the platforms is I will have a row of roads going all the way around as well. And I'll probably have some few offshoots, like maybe a road that just goes straight back here and turns off, and maybe just goes straight back a little bit. And I'm actually planning on incorporating the Spider-Man Ultimate Bridge Battle set as well. So I'll be able to have a road that leads into that, and have the bridge facing out. Like, if you're standing here, the bridge would be facing you, which I think will look pretty interesting. But yeah, and another thing I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do. This is gonna come a lot later, but a way to blend the sidewalk between the modular buildings and the Daily Bugle, and then my custom buildings, because I know this tiling and this sidewalk looks a lot better, but personally I like to be able to pose figures and make scenes on the sidewalks, and having it all tiled over like this makes it very hard to do that. So what I think would be best is to go with how my sidewalks originally were, which you can see down here was just straight plates, and kind of blend that in to where it joins a little bit nicer, because that's a little bit of a dirty meeting right there. So I think that'll be another thing we'll have to work on. But like I said, that'll come much, much later once we get the full city put back together. So yeah, now let's go ahead and go build the rest of these platforms. Alright, I got all the legs cut down and all the platforms sanded. So now I think the next step is going to be to go ahead and clear out this entire area. And then we can go ahead and set the tables up and see what it looks like. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so now we got the entire city cleared off the table, besides a little bit of train track that I decided to just leave. And I think the next step is going to be to actually start fitting in that train track. Because what I want to do is I actually want to have two train lines. I want to have one for the cargo train, and then an interior lane for the passenger train, which I think is going to look pretty awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and go get that done. Alright, we now have all the train track laid out and measured out, which is pretty awesome. And I went ahead and placed all of the elevated tables in as well. And if you remember back to the SketchUp drawing that I did, you can see this is definitely different than what I mocked up. But that's just because my original design didn't really look as good as I thought it would. So I decided to just kind of play around with it, change it up, and this is what I came up with, where we can have our access to our cargo train port, and I'll find some way to incorporate the Hogwarts Express train station in here as well, somehow. And it also gives us a lot of open space for base plates, both on top, and we have a little area down here and down here to work with as well for maybe the park and areas like that that kind of fit awkwardly in the actual city. So yeah, I think the next step is actually going to be to start getting some road plates down on top of these tables, and maybe go ahead and start getting in some big buildings as well. So let's go ahead and go do that. Alright, so now we got our three biggest buildings of the city placed, as well as some road plates. And the main reason that I'm actually redesigning the city, which is to incorporate the bridge from the Spider-Man Web Warriors Ultimate Bridge Battle set, which in my opinion is one of the greatest Spider-Man sets of all time, behind the Daily Bugle. And yeah, that is actually going to extend from this back table over the train track, which I think is really awesome. I do have some very temporary stands for it. This was just to kind of get it to the right level to where it would sit flush with the road plates, and that's what I've done here. And now if we look over here at where the biggest buildings are, you can see that our current layout is the Daily Bugle on the end, then the police station in the middle, then the Avengers Tower back a little bit and looming over the police station. And if you look, there's actually room for one more building back there, which might be the Sanctum Sanctorum, but I haven't 100% decided yet. So yeah, that'll be decided later on in the video. And yeah, these road plates, they're not fully tiled off yet or anything, but this is just kind of like a baseline. And the plan right now is to have buildings across here, buildings back here, and then the beach in either this corner or that corner. I'm leaning more towards this corner though. And then have some more buildings back in here, maybe a park area, and yeah, just it'll all come together in the end. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do now is extend this road to where the bridge will be sitting, and then you can see how that's going to join up. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so ignore the mess of pieces everywhere. I've just been kind of salvaging parts from wherever I can find them. But what we got is we finished up the road, besides this one little segment right here, which, sad to say, I'm going to have to buy a whole new pack of road plates just to complete this. Unless I find another way around it, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And I also went ahead and added in the beach area. Now, these buildings like the sweet shop, the sushi shack, and the drink stand, they're all going to end up moving. I just kind of slotted into here with the way they were in the old city layout. So yeah, now you kind of get to see how much space we really have for buildings. We've got room for one back there, a whole bunch all the way along this street section, and we'll have buildings here, and potentially some buildings back here as well, but I haven't really decided on that part yet. So yeah, I think what we're going to do next is get the sidewalks laid out along the roads that are actually on the table. So like edges like this obviously won't have sidewalks, but over here it will. So yeah, I think that's going to be the next step. So let's go ahead and get that done. Alright, we got all the sidewalks put in now. And as you can see, I did start running out of some of these edging bricks over in this corner. So I will need to get a few more of those to finish it up. But I also did a little landing area for the Avengers Tower. Just something small just to fill in that space. And yeah, and I also moved around the buildings over here by the beach. So I moved the sweet shop, which was right here, back against the wall. And then put the drink stand and the sushi shack across from each other. And then I went ahead and stuck the pizzeria over here as well, because I think this would just be a good area for that restaurant to go. And just to fill in this space here, I put in a green base plate and then just a little path leading to the restaurant. So I'll probably put some flowers and stuff in here just to fill in that area until I need it for more buildings. And yeah, what I also did was I joined in the bridge to the road plates. It's not the cleanest, but it gets the job done and it keeps the bridge where it's supposed to be. So, yeah, I think that's it for the sidewalks. I think the next step is actually going to be to put in the buildings in this area. So let's go ahead and get that done now. Alright, we got all the buildings put in place now. At least all the ones that I currently have built. And as you can see, I did decide to stick the museum back there in the corner by the Avengers Tower, just because it's kind of a weird shape because it has those extra two studs that stick out on either side. So yeah, that's a good place for that back there. And then, to make these buildings fit in this area, because I didn't count right whenever I was measuring the studs, I actually had to take the sidewalk off from this side. So in order to compensate for that, I just stuck the garage right here, so that way when the cars are coming out of the garage, they're already right on the road, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and just work our way from left to right. So we have, like I said, the garage and pet store build. Then we have our little Crook's hideout, which looks like a pretty terrible building, but actually use only pieces from one certain classic box. And I'll link that video right up here if you are interested in watching that. Then the next set is one of the little mini modulars. It's the grocery store and toy shop, I believe is what it's called. And it's just one of the little Creator 3-in-1 sets, which I've had for a long time. And the next building is the Sanctum Sanctorum from Avengers Infinity War, which looks amazing. It's one of my favorite buildings that I have in the city. Then the next building is actually my Lego bank, which doesn't have an interior quite yet, but it looks pretty awesome from the exterior, especially really like this sign and this sign that's hanging on the side as well. But as you can see, we actually do have an empty lot here, as well as a bunch of empty space over here. So we do have some more room for more buildings now, which is a problem that I was struggling with in the last layout, is that I had no more room for buildings, even though I had buildings that I wanted to add. Especially with all the new LEGO City sets coming out in January, I'm definitely going to be picking up a few of those to be adding into the city. So yeah, I think the only thing left to do for this city update is get some figures, some cars, and the rest of our trains put in. And then go ahead and close out the video. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so now we got vehicles and figures placed all throughout the city. And I think this really brings the city to life a lot more than it was before, where you can see just how dense and how various all the colors and different vehicles are throughout the city. So you can see I did make one small change, where I moved the park that was sitting down here, and actually just put it up here, just to kind of fill in this area a little bit, and then I'll put some more buildings down there in the future, because I think I've got a pretty awesome idea of how to connect the two levels. But that'll come in the next city update. But for now, since I am missing that one road plate, I just went ahead and put a little construction scene here. That'll, whenever I get the road plate, I'll be able to put a crosswalk down here, and then have it kind of connect that way. Have this green section over here connect to this green section. So yeah, you can see there's all kinds of little details. Got a whole bunch of figures walking around. Got the jetpack police officer flying here. Whole bunch more vehicles, people walking in and out of buildings. Got our awesome ice cream truck actually set up over here off the road. Right over here next to the rest of the food in the city. And yeah, I think the next step is actually going to be adding in some superhero scenes. Adding in some fights and make this place really pop. So let's go ahead and go do that. Alright, and now with some awesome fight scenes set up, let's go ahead and go through everything that we got in the city now. I think we'll start over here in my favorite section of the city, which is the Daily Bugle. And I decided not to have any fights on the Bugle this time around, but if you just keep an eye on my Instagram, I'll probably be posting some fight scenes later, because I do now have access to this little hole in the wall here, so I've got some plans to do some cool stuff with that. But yeah, moving on, you can see we do have a Sentinel here fighting Colossus and Wolverine, and that is my custom Colossus figure, which I again posted over on my Instagram. You can see we got a police officer here trying to call for some backup, Wolverine trying to cut his head off, and Colossus going for his leg. And if we keep going, you see just a couple people walking around on the street. Then we go up top on Avengers Tower. You can see we got Black Widow and Yelena Belova fighting. And then we have Captain America and Death Dealer fighting as well. So it looks like they're trying to break into the Avengers Tower. Then we got a police helicopter here just getting ready to take off. If we keep going down to this rooftop, you can see we got the kid flying his drone. And I absolutely love that CMF figure. That's one of my favorite CMFs that LEGO's done in a while. Then we just have a passenger plane here, flying a little low. But it's alright, he's probably coming in for a landing. Then we have, looks like we got Dorothy and the Scarecrow going up to the pet store. Maybe going to find Toto a friend. We got the stunts bike. Then looks like we got Ghost Rider down here who's got Taskmaster by the arm with his fire chain. So that's not going to end very well for Taskmaster. And if we keep moving along, you can see up top here we do have Iron Man fighting Loki, who looks like he's trying to escape him, but not doing a very good job at it. And if we come down here to the bridge, we do have the Green Goblin running from the Falcon. And I love this set, so of course I was going to do a fight scene on this. I thought about doing something with the little drop area here, but I decided not to this time. Maybe next time. Then keep going, you can see I did populate the park a little bit more and threw some more flowers and stuff in. And we got our construction site. In the last fight scene, we do have Spider-Man and Miss Marvel Kamala Khan fighting Sandman at the beach. So that's a fitting spot for him to be emerging. So yeah, that's going to be it for the first city update of 2022. Let me know what you guys think of the city down below in the comments, and let me know if you prefer this layout or if you prefer the older layout. And once again, thank you all for watching. SuperBricks37, signing off.